Well, hey, this is Rhonda Simmons, and I am the founder and CEO of the Simmons Empowerment Foundation. And I am so excited, like I say in every single episode. Welcome to another edition of Empowered Heart to Heart. And today is something different. We are halfway through 2023. And sometimes you just have to bust a move. And so I did it. I'm busting a move today. And I have a special guest on my show today. And we're actually going to engage in a real live coaching session. She doesn't know the questions I'm going to ask her, and I don't know the responses she's going to give. So you get to see it live. And I can tell you, our coaching session is framed around reclaiming your power at work. When we talk about our careers, sometimes we start out, it's our career, we're so excited. And then that excitement dwindles over time and it becomes, that's my job. Huge difference. And so we have to delve into what changed, what made us happy in the beginning. Why aren't we happy like we were back then? What's going on? Are we the change, or have there been some changes on the job? And sometimes we feel powerless. And so you get to listen in to a real live coaching session. This is not rehearsed, this is not practice, but you get to see a real live coaching session with me as the Master Certified Professional Coach, as well as my guest. And I am so glad to have her. And before I bring her in, let me just say, please make sure that if you're watching this on our YouTube channel or Facebook, please, or Twitter, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe so that you can be notified every single time we upload a video. We're also on YouTube, same name, Empowered Heart to Heart. Make sure that you have also pinned us and bookmarked us if you're listening to our podcast, so that you'll know every single time a new episode is coming out, because you want to make sure you're not missing a single thing. And so without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my client, Miss Juliana. Hello,
Hi.
Juliana. Welcome. How are
I-
you?
I'm good, Rhonda. I'm very excited to be here.
Good. I am excited to have you. It's funny, I tell my listeners and viewers every single time, I'm so excited. It just can't get any better than this. And I say that about every episode because I feel that way. And
hmm
so I'm real excited that you're a part of our podcast today and you're on this coaching journey with me. And I appreciate you choosing to allow us to record this. I guess, when it comes to the internet, I would say you've allowed us to record this in perpetuity, because it'll
hmm
always be there.
Ooh, wow, that
And,
sounds so official.
but we're going to have a great time, and it's an amazing thing to be able to work with someone to help discover what brings you joy on a job and how to
Yeah.
go from a job to a career. What do you do for a living?
Yeah. So I am a dietitian by trade, and I've been a dietitian. I got my license like 8.5 years ago now, I think. So that is what I do. But I think the more we go into this session today, Rhonda, I think you're going to find that you found me like at like almost the exact perfect time, because I am making some major career shifts right now. Some of my own accord, some not of my own accord. And I think we're going to get into a lot more of that, but we'll just start with dietitian by trade.
Well, wonderful. That sounds exciting. It's exciting to me because not that I wanted to be a dietitian, but because I need one. So that is exciting work that you're doing, and on behalf of humanity who definitely needs to take better care of ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having that compassion. One of the things that, as some pre work for our coaching session today, is I shared an activity page with you. It's a coaching tool called How to Reclaim Your Power at Work. And were you able to review that page and gather your thoughts around it?
Yeah. And I thought that, like I said, like I'm kind of in the precipice of a change. I don't know how in depth you want me to just like kind of go off and tell you what's going on, or do you want
Y-
to save that for
That,
later?
that's entirely up to you. You can share as much or as little as you like.
Okay, so I will just tell you a little bit background now. I'm sure knowing my big mouth and how I don't know how to shut up, we'll get even more into details down the road. But essentially, I've been a dietitian now for 8 years. 7 of those 8 years, I was working in nursing home care, which is funny because when I graduated from college, I said I want to work with anyone but old people. And what did I do for 7 years? I worked with old people, and I love them. They're really cute and they're adorable. They're pretty much kids that know what sex is and they know how to swear. That's really the only two differences between them and a small child. But they're very funny. And the only unfortunate thing with that is that nursing homes are kind of the unwanted stepchild of the healthcare system. So they don't get a lot of funding, there's not a lot of resources behind them, and it's very stressful to work in that environment. And so I was like, I kind of need to get out of this. So I had the opportunity to go and work for the Veterans Administration as an outpatient dietitian, working with like literally anyone who walked into my office, like so many different age groups, disease states, everything, anyone. Um, Unfortunately for me, about halfway through my tenure at the VA, I had a woman who I had worked with previously step in as our like main boss. And she's someone who just like met me previously at other jobs, mistreated me there, just decided she just doesn't like me as a human being. You know, those lovely people who they just meet you. They're just like, I don't like you. And you're like, why? And they're like, I don't know. So she stepped in, pretty much made my job and my life like just a nightmare all the time. And I ended up getting fired because she pretty much dyslexia related reasons. I have dyslexia, but she framed it in such a way where the wording wasn't quite that. So I couldn't really get like get her for that exact thing and be like, hey, that's against the American Against Disabilities Act. And so that being said, I've been out of a job now for about 2 months. I have been starting up my private practice as a dietitian the last like 2 months or so. And I'm kind of at the precipice where I am kind of maybe like over being a clinical dietitian and wanting to shift into like a more like holistic style of like dietitian work, which is much more Julianna. I am much more someone who works off of like feelings and intentions and emotions and all these things. And I think people don't realize how emotional food is anyway, which is a whole big pillar that I kind of stand on as a dietitian. Um, but I'm making a very big career shift right now, which is great that we are talking because I am like in the precipice of starting my dietitian private practice and figuring out what that looks like for me, how I can market that, like what that even means. I've never owned my own business before. I don't really know what I'm doing. And then also I just kind of like figuring like, oh, if I do this, I probably have to pick up part-time work on the side too. And so actually in 2 weeks, I'm going to be a sandwich line cook at a sandwich shop down the street because I live on Cape Cod, so there's lots of summer work here. So I'm picking up some summer work. So a
Good
lot of
for
career
you.
changes happening right now.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing story. So, and I'm sorry that you lost your job and all that led up to that.
Yeah.
And that can be very traumatic, definitely.
Yeah.
So, for this coaching session, what goals do you have? What would you like to accomplish by the end of this coaching session?
Maybe just some like actionable steps towards like what can I do to like work on my private practice dietitian and just like make sure that I'm like things that I can put in place that I make sure like I'm happy with what I'm doing. Like obviously not 100% of the time everything's going to be easy or happy, but things that like would make it help the dietitian practice move along in a positive manner.
Okay. Alrighty, that sounds good. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm making some notes so that we can make sure that we are staying in line with your goals.
Yes.
And so, thank you for sharing that with me. So, one of the things that I've asked you to do prior to our session to kind of create a context and a framework for the work that we're going to do together today was this activity page about reclaiming your power at work. And it's interesting. I did not know your current situation with your job
Hmm.
at the time, and I did not know all that you went through. And so on one hand, our viewers may be thinking, well, she just said she doesn't have a job, so how is she going to reclaim her power at work? Well, that's actually a legitimate question
Mm,
because we take ourselves with us wherever we go.
yep.
And so let me just be very clear. I am not implying or stating in any way that the things that happened to you were your fault. I wasn't there. I'm not, this is a judgment free zone. But what I am saying is we can work together on tools that you can put in place so that those things don't happen again.
Yeah.
And so that you know what to do when faced with other people in situations like you've been through. Does that sound helpful?
Yeah, no, that would definitely be very helpful. And I think too, a lot of what you're saying, those things, like I'm thinking like, yeah, like you carry yourself into each job and then like you also carry like bits and pieces of what's happened to you going forward too. So I think that that's a lot of good points that you just made.
Thank you. And so, one question I have is when you were talking about starting your practice and where you are right now and all of the things that you don't know, one of the key things I heard you say is that um, the practice that you want to have is very much Juliana
Yes.
with the holistic approach. And so, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So I I have kind of found like one of the niches that I settle into because I have ADHD. And that's a recent diagnosis of the last like 2 or 3 years. So I, in my process of doing that, have sought out a therapist that specifically works with people with ADHD, which, oh my God, there are like no therapists out there that want to deal with ADHD. They want to put you on a pill and then just call it a day. It's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. Like you still have to do the mental like gymnastics to utilize the medications correctly. So I know how hard it was for me to find someone to deal with that. And then I, being a dietitian, also know how much my ADHD and like other people's neurodivergent tendencies play into your eating habits. And like binge eating is a huge thing with neurodivergent people, just like sensory things, like constantly chewing or something like that. Um, and so I've kind of found a little bit of a niche in helping people who have that like neurodivergent side to them. They have ADHD, they have ADD, they have some kind of autism spectrum disorder, things like that. So I definitely want to, with my practice going forward, like make it so people who have those like things with them feel comfortable coming to me with that, because I feel like that is like a hugely untapped and uncared for population of people when it comes to nutrition. So one of like the niches I've kind of fallen into is that, and that's a very Juliana thing because I, again, like I have ADHD and I can definitely speak to a lot of the things on a personal level.
Wow, that is wonderful. And I love how, even with your career goals, you're connecting your career goals with your core values.
Yeah.
And that is amazing. Um, how did you how did you arrive at that decision to connect the two?
Well, it's interesting because at my time when I was working at the VA, I I'm in currently in the process of just like discovering more about, like I said, I have a therapist I'm working with for my ADHD specifically, like kind of discovering a lot of those tendencies. And it's very interesting to me how many veterans have undiagnosed ADHD or somewhere in that like spectrum, because what's best for people with who are neurodiverse is that they have structure, but not too much structure. They're not usually the best at concentrating on like written tests and things like that. And
Mhm.
then they need direction. And a lot of these people who I was seeing at the VA are in their like 60s, 70s, 80s, somewhere in that time frame, where when they grew up, neurodiversity, not even mentioned, ADHD, ADD, never was a thing. No one, they were just like, oh, you're just bad at school, essentially. And so these kids who were like bad at school and like needed to find somewhere to direct a lot of their energy to, where did they go? The army. And so you have a lot of these people who have all this energy, they need a sense of direction. They were like quote unquote bad at school when they were growing up. And so they went into the army, they processed through the army, they land back in civilian life, bam. And then you get these people who are like have uncontrolled diabetes and all these other things because they just can't, they don't know why their brain can't like focus on one thing. So I would talk to these people and like I would just one refer them over to a psychologist because it was in the same office as us, and two also like validate how they were feeling and be like, hey, like what you're telling me are like kind of neurodivergent behaviors. You should probably go see a therapist to have them like like diagnose you and see if you need medications or something like that. But like from a nutrition side of things, this is what we can work on. Like I recognize these behaviors in you and I know from what you're telling me this is how it plays out nutritionally for you, and knowing these things about like my ADHD in general, things like that, this is how we can attack this problem best to make it so you reach your goals.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's so important because when you connect your work with your values, it just increases your enjoyment altogether. And it's like, ah,
Yeah,
you
I
figure
agree.
it out, and that's wonderful that you've gotten to that point. So tell me what to the polar opposite of that. What are some of the things that would make for a bad work environment for you? What don't you want to experience in your career?
Yeah, I think just like an overarching level of like highly controlled like management more or less, because that's really when I've run into the biggest issues is when I have a manager who just doesn't want to, they see things very black and white. There's no gray zone. And people who are neurodivergent, we live in the gray zone permanently. Like this, we don't really go to the black and white areas. We're just constantly in that gray zone. And having someone who like just won't just accept that I do things a little bit different, or like I'm going to get to that point, but it's going to be a little bit different of a process. Um, or just accept that like, hey, Julianna has dyslexia. She's going to make spelling mistakes. Like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. No one's going to die, but like maybe she spelled banana wrong today. So someone just that level of like overarching like management where they're unwilling to be flexible in any capacity with their expectations and what they want out of you, essentially.
Absolutely. One of the things I didn't tell you, Juliana,
Mhm.
is that besides being a nonprofit founder and a coach, I'm also an educator
Mhm.
and school principal. And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and so I'm so amazed that you've shared so much of your story and your diagnoses with us today. Because, as we say in education, um, all learners learn differently,
Mhm.
and being able to embrace those differences, like this is the end goal, this is what I need you to learn,
Mhm.
but there's so many different avenues to get there, and to be okay with students taking those different avenues to get there is huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. And I love how you have you're coming at your career from that place of trying to reach people who have challenges, but they want to overcome them, or they
Mhm.
have differences. And what's interesting, I really don't like even saying differences, because that's a part of the human condition. We're all different
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
way, and just being able to take the time to access the person. One of the things, let me ask you this too,
Mhm.
that just popped into my mind. The person that you encountered, uh, that you had a negative encounter with, at any point, what was the communication like between the two of you, either at your last job or other jobs? What was the communication like?
Yeah, very like top down from them, kind of like speaking down to me like I was a small child. And we had a lot of interactions, but the one that really hit it home to me was this 45-minute lecture pretty much that she gave me, which pretty much in the end, the moral of the story was if you're not doing it my way, it's wrong. Like, because the whole thing was like, okay, you did this. It's not wrong, but this is how I would have done it. And just 45 minutes of that over and over again. And pretty much her being like, you should only do it my way. Like, you can only write it exactly my way. And if you do not write it my way, in my head, it is wrong. And just that, I came away from that honestly laughing, because I was like, this woman expects everyone to write the exact same way as her. How does she expect everyone's brains to work exactly the same way as her? Like, what a completely unrealistic expectation. Like, I was upset for a little bit, and then I literally was just like laughing. I was like, this woman's insane. She's mentally insane, thinking like literally everyone is going to write in the exact same style and wording and punctuation style as her. Like, that's
Okay,
wild.
cool. That's wonderful. So, what would you have preferred her to do, or how would you have preferred her to handle the situation?
I guess more or less just asking like, "Hey, what is your experience with these things?" And actually genuinely trying to see like, okay, what is Juliana doing? Is it actually affecting how, like, the goal that she's trying to achieve? Like, is she not achieving the goal because of what she's doing? Or is her sentence wording just a little bit different than mine, and we're getting to the same end goal? It's just that the way that she worded the sentence is a little bit different than the way that I would have preferred to have worded it, but it means the same thing in the end. So I think it's just a lack of a large, it was a very large lack of empathy, and a large lack of like actually caring about the people, and like just an acceptance of that things can be different, but they can still be okay.
Good, good. And you actually hit on the next point, because as you were talking about the differences in communication between you and the other person, what was going on in my mind is that you are goal oriented, and
Yes.
she sounds like she's process oriented.
Yes. That's a very good, yeah, good call out. Good catch.
So, as you're working towards opening your own practice, what can you do to set your staff up for success in light of your own experiences?
I think definitely I'm someone, and this is what I do like in my private practice too when I'm working with people as well too. It's like I want to meet you where you are. And I'm very much so someone who like I want to know what you're comfortable with and like where your strengths lie, because if we all play into our strengths, we are greater than the sum of our parts. And like if I tell everyone, okay, like I'm an avid runner, and I understand that's not for everyone. If I tell everyone, okay, we have to get a mile down the street and we're all going to run, that's not going to work out well for everyone. But if I say, okay, I'm going to run, all going to go a mile down the street. I'm going to run. You're going to ride your skates. You're going to take a scooter. You're going to ride your bike. You're going to just like do like the electric slide all the way down to the mile point. And as long as we all get there, that's fine. It doesn't matter the actual like method of you. You could crawl if you wanted to. You can get on, you can do like a log roll down the street as long as you don't get smashed by a car. Like, I don't really care. Um, as long as you get yourself to that mile point down the road, that's fine. Not everyone has to run, not everyone has to log roll. Like, it's just your choice, whatever you feel the strongest in. And that's kind of where I like to stand with a lot of things. It's like, we're going to get, like you said, I'm goal oriented. Like, we want to get to a goal, but how we get there really matters how you feel comfortable getting there, not how I dictate that you get there.
Wonderful, wonderful. So then, um, are your goals sound like they're tailored to each individual? There's like this corporate goal,
Yeah.
and then the individuality comes in the process of reaching that goal.
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
that is really cool. So, you said that you wanted some actionable steps uh, towards starting your practice. Um, and I don't think you realize, and maybe you do, um, how far along you actually are. And the reason I say this is because knowing your own core values when it comes to your career is super important. And somewhere around this video and in the description of the podcast, I'm going to put a link to my career values workbook. It's totally free, so that people can really dive into what those values are, that they have for themselves, and determine, is what they're doing now in their career aligning with those values. And so you've actually already done some work knowing exactly what you want. Now it's time to execute.
Yeah.
So, what you've accomplished so far is, your values. You know also the niche that you want to serve, and the third thing is, what circles do you travel in that connect to that niche? How hard? Well, I don't want to ask multiple questions at once, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely if anything, if I want to sell something, I can. If I'm passionate about something and I like something, and I think this is a big ADHD thing where, like, if you love something, you're, like, really on top of it and you're like, "Yeah, this is great," and if you don't, like, you it's gone. It's whatever. You can't do anything with it. So, like, with my business, like, I'm definitely, like, really, like, interested in obviously selling it to people. So far I have my running club that I've done some nutrition classes with and put it out to that. Um, I have an Instagram page that I'm utilizing. I'm trying to do some like podcast guest spots if I can, working with some other creators in the ADHD space as well too. Online, putting my information out to the Veterans Outreach Center that I used to do some work with, the food pantry over there. So they have me featured in their newsletter every week with a little thing that I'm writing up for them. I've reached out to the senior center, which has been a very odd interaction. I don't know the woman behind that. See, it's just been the weirdest emails I think I've ever gotten in my life from there. But hey, whatever. And then also just trying to get my face out there, and that's one of the benefits too of me like taking up this job at the sandwich shop down the street. It's a gluten-free vegan sandwich shop, so it's not just like your average sandwich shop, and it's going to be like during this, people in the Falmouth where I live is a very community base. It's got that it's very small town, like everyone knows everyone, and just me being more integrated with the community is like a really like big plus for me, just getting my face in a place where I'm going to see more people who live around here, and potentially get to like put my business card like out on like the little board that they have there and just be like, hey, if you need something, you can reach out to me. So I've been trying to stick my paws into every single pond that I possibly can, which is it's slow moving, if anything, getting people into the private practice, but one at a time. And I'm also trying to. I actually have someone I'm meeting with today who's from a school that is specifically made for people with learning disabilities. It's a really amazing school. It's really awesome on Cape Cod, called the Riverview School, if anyone wants to look it up. But I'm meeting with someone who just graduated from there who's trying to like improve on his nutrition today. And so we're going to see if that's a good fit, because that's like a big thing with ADHD and like neurodivergency. You got to make sure you vibe with the person. We're like big on vibes. But I'm be meeting with them, and then hopefully, if that goes well, work a little bit more into that. But I'm trying to do as many things as I can.
Sounds like it. It sounds like it. So in your talking, you mentioned that you are very much a community person. You
Yes.
love people. So that kind of answers my next question about, well, maybe not. I'll ask it anyway. And my question is, what type of practice are you looking to have? In person, virtual, hybrid? What type of practice, or house calls?
Yeah.
What type of practice are you looking for?
Yeah. I think it's kind of like in the evolving state. Like we're starting off with like a virtual practice, but I definitely am someone like, if you're local and you live in town, and this is hopefully something I'm going to be doing with the gentleman I'll be working with, is like going to the grocery store with them. Like if I only have to drive a second down the street, you're going to pay me the same. Like for me, it doesn't matter, as long as I'm not driving really far. But yeah, I think it's gonna end up being a little bit more hybrid. We're kind of in that developing stage, figuring out what I want to do, because definitely I have some spots booked out for some classes I'm teaching with my running club again too, and those are all in person. And I definitely at some point would like to make like a virtual class that I can offer to people so they can just like sign up and take the class. Because I'm very comfortable on camera, I'm used to being behind a microphone. That's definitely one of my skills that I have is just, and also I don't know when to shut up. So like maybe canning myself a little bit is probably a good idea. um,
You're
but
funny.
yeah, it's at some point I'd like to make like a class, and I'm currently working on a few worksheets like you have, I'm sure too, like things that you can utilize as like either like materials to get people a little bit more involved with your practice or just things that you can hand out to people that you're working with so they can get a better idea of like how to complete the things that you're asking them to complete. So I think it's going to end up being like a hybrid business, but we're only about 2 months into the whole process, and so it's not really fully fleshed out yet.
I understand. I understand. One of the big questions that I have for you
Mhm.
that I'm sure our listeners and our viewers are wanting to know is, out of all of the dietitians out there, what do you do that we just can't find anywhere that would make me say, I want Juliana in my life? Where do I sign?
Ooh, okay. Think that I feel like first off, there's only one Julianna Coughlin out there. Like the more I live my life, the more I'm like, there's literally only one of me. So if you want someone who's an original human being, here you go. Here I am. Uh, but I think the biggest thing that I provide is like a level of empathy that you don't see out of a lot of other people, and especially dietitians. Just a quick story time when I was becoming like thinking about becoming a dietitian, I had a few interactions with different adults in my life who were like, "Oh, I saw a dietitian once, and she was really mean to me, and I never want to go back again." And I kept hearing this narrative over and over again. And I can tell you what, I've met many of these dietitians; they do exist. So, dietitians are very type A personalities on the whole, like, and sometimes that just plays out as like dictatorship esque, not the best like human to human skills sometimes. But I made a pact to myself that I want to be the dietitian that people want to come back and see again. Like, I want you to leave the appointment with me feeling like I feel seen, I feel understood, and I had fun. I love to crack a joke. I love to make like a silly pun. Like, I want you to have fun. I want you to smile. I want you to enjoy the time that you had with me. So that way, like, and I've broken even the most curmudgeon veterans. I've had so many veterans who came in and saw me and were like, I only came here because my doctor came. And at the end, they're like, when's the next appointment? I'm like, there we go. Okay, here we go. Here we're friends now. I want people to feel like they have someone who's like who's a part of their journey. I'm very much so. I'm like, hi. I like to call everyone my friends. Um, and I was just like, I want you to make sure you have like a friend who's also a dietitian and someone who understands you and that level of just being willing to meet you where you are. So I think that empathy, kindness, silliness, weirdness, and just a level of like person to person skills that maybe you won't find anywhere else.
Wonderful. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And yes, I'm definitely feeling the vibe. And that is so cool. So, as we're getting towards the end of our session, let's revisit some action steps and where we are. First of all, you already shared with us what your core values are in a work environment, just in general, and what you want to have and what you want to create in your own practice. You've also identified your niche audience, which is huge. That is beyond huge because as a business owner, if you don't know exactly who you serve and avoid, oh, I just help anyone and everyone,
Yeah.
you're going to be chasing your tail, so to speak. If you don't have that niche identified and really nailed down. You've also identified the type of leader that you are, that you're goal oriented rather than process oriented. And that is wonderful. And you've identified, in general terms, the type of business that you want to have. So you have some things already established, which is wonderful. If I had some applause
Oh, you like to do a
music,
round? I love doing a round of applause. I do that for I do that for people I work with.
yes,
I promise them a round of applause if they do something good, and they're like, "What?" I'm
yes.
like, "Yeah, my mom was my mom used to be a teacher who worked with autistic children, and so I grew up like just things that are like of that nature, teaching
Wow.
things. My sister's also a teacher too. She teaches second grade, so
Okay,
very
cool.
much
That
that
is
vibe in
wonderful.
my
That
household.
is wonderful. So you grew up in an environment of empathy and in
Yeah,
an
I would say
environment
so.
of, yeah, and accepting people for who they are and all of the gifts that they bring.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people who don't have challenges um, don't view it as this is my opportunity to learn how to interact differently with this
Mhm.
person in front of me, and so it's just so important. So I'm really thrilled about that. But now we're to the point where the rubber meets the road.
Mhm.
First, my first question as far as action steps is, have you identified your opening date?
Well, right now I am accepting patients right now, and I have like 5 people who I've gotten so far who have signed up, and yeah, and at least 3 of them have done follow-ups, have scheduled either had done a follow-up with me or have a follow-up scheduled in my EMR system already, which is great. And like I said, I'm really hoping that working with someone who is very much so like the man I'm working with later today, very much so in that neurodiverse niche, will maybe like lead me to other people that are kind of in the same situation that he's in. They're leaving this school that's meant for neurodiverse people, and they're going into the real world, and they just need a little bit of help, and I can like meet them at the grocery store, help them out with those things. So right now I'm open for business. So that's a good thing.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. So, my second question would be, you've stated that you've done a little bit of everything
Yeah.
in order to reach your community. What can you do differently to market your practice,
Mm.
and by when?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have to more or less refine my online marketing stuff because like my Instagram is like my main thing that I have right now, and that's like kind of bringing me things. And I'm like, should I need a website. I not to decide if it's like a blog. It's gonna also include a blog too. That's something I keep in the back of my brain. But I think I need like a specific website to like house a lot of the things that I either am doing or want to do, like that course that I possibly want to make. So I think like my next step in marketing is probably going to be like making an actual like website. Cause now I have a link tree that you can go to that brings you to some of like the more important links that I have. So there is like a home page for me. Um, but I think I need like a website to because especially if I'm going to build off of that and offer like handouts and courses and things like that, I want a place where this stuff can live in a permanent home, more or less. So I think that marketing wise, that and then also just letting people know that I'm taking new clients and like putting that out there like on a more community based side of things beyond just like my circles that I already live in, like letting other people outside of those circles know what's going on. So,
Okay, good. Now, here's my last action question.
mhm,
You and I just stepped into an elevator. We're on the first floor. We're going to the fourth floor.
mhm.
You have about 60 seconds
Oh
to give
no.
me an elevator pitch about your business, and most importantly, your program promise.
Mm,
What
okay.
would you tell?
Well, I obviously say that I'm Julianna. I'm a dietitian, and I specialize in working with neurodiverse people, and I really can work with anyone, but I want to just make sure that you can help. I can help you reach your nutritional goals, however that looks, whatever that means to you. And I want to help you with the things that are most important to you and help you feel healthier and live a better life. And that no matter where you are, we can still work on your nutrition status and make it so you're just living a healthier life. And I'm happy to do it and happy to make some puns and silly jokes along the way. So that way we can enjoy our time together.
Wonderful. That sounds great. And as I'm stepping off the elevator, I'm asking you, please give me your card because I know someone.
Yeah.
So that is wonderful. And the reason why I asked that question to our audience is because when you're starting a business, you have to have a program promise. What
Yeah.
is it that you're going to promise your clients that they will gain or get by working with you? It's so super important because everybody wants that one question answered. What's in it for me? How is my life going to be
Mm.
better from working with you? Um, and I loved your answer. It's great. It's great. Sometimes we might want to narrow that down to
Yeah.
one sentence. I help, fill in the blank, your specific niche audience. You help them do what? And sometimes it's even helpful to say without jeopardizing or without doing this or
Hmm.
without doing that. And I don't think that that would be hard to fill in the blanks because
Yeah.
you already know what you know what you want to do and who you want to help. But that program promise is essential because that's almost like your tagline,
Yeah.
who you are. And if you keep it to one sentence, then when people start talking about you in other conversations and what you do, they'll remember that tagline as opposed to the paragraph. And
Yeah.
so it's just something to share. And so, as we wrap up our session today, Juliana, um, do you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close to your goal of having some action steps do you think we've come?
I feel like I have some good action steps. I feel like better about just because I haven't really had anyone been helping me make my business. It's just like mostly been me doing things and like learning things via like listening to podcasts or looking up stuff on my own and doing my own research. Um, so
Mhm.
it makes me feel a lot better that I have kind of taken a lot of the action steps that you've already built into your program without me knowing that I was doing these things. So that makes me feel a lot better too. And I think like one of the things that so I have two short things. One of them is about like the action statement, and I just wanted to share that the name of my nutrition practice is One Step in the Right Direction Nutrition Counseling, because what I like to say is one step in the right direction is one step in the right direction, no matter how small. And that's kind of like the tent pole that I live off of for my nutrition practice, more or less. Like as long as we're making positive steps, no matter how small they are, it still counts as a positive step. Um, and also just from a personal perspective, my goal for 2023 and onward is to be a little bit more Julianna every day. And I want to just be more authentically myself every day. And this nutrition practice, I feel like you've kind of gauged, is like an authentic iteration of who I am as a person, which I feel like, again, like you said, makes it easier to find joy in that if I feel like it's part of me as a human being. So I just want to share those two little tidbits.
Well, that is wonderful. Um, as our viewers can see, you have just been beaming the entire time,
I love to
talking
smile.
about your passion. Well, that's always a plus too, and that's what draws people to you. But your passion comes through, and I'm sure our audience will agree that you will be an amazing practitioner because you already are, and you keep people first, and because you already do, and so I'm confident that you're going to be successful in your newfound career, and I love the fact that you're taking a negative experience and turning it into something positive that can impact so many more lives. And so I'm really proud of you. Another round of applause.
I love getting a round of applause. Yes.
Yes.
Uh, well, thank you. I mean, that means a lot to me too. And I'm definitely someone who I had this conversation with one of my friends the other day. They're like, Juliana, you're very resilient. I was like, really? They're like, and they're like listing off all the things that I've done. They're like, yeah, you bounce back. Like you're like a freaking bouncy ball that just like boing, like bounces off a wall. You hit a wall that you don't like and you're just like, bye. So, which I definitely is like an ADHD. As ADHD people, we're very good at like forgetting that things happened and then just like moving on from them. Um, just kind of a thing that happens. But yeah, definitely it's nice to hear, like obviously it's nice to hear nice things about myself, so I appreciate that. But it's nice to hear like an outsider's level of confidence in the things that I am doing, because sometimes, like as you probably know, starting up a business, like it's nerve-wracking and definitely tests your confidence a lot with all the things that you have to be doing, putting yourself out there so much, and like you said, like pitching yourself to like every single person that you run into, being like, hey, this is what I can do for you, blah 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 blah. And it being a numbers game too, of like, okay, I advertise to like 2,000 people, I get like 3 clients. It's like, okay, this is a large numbers game. uh
Yes, yes,
but
it
yeah,
is.
I appreciate like your help, and your feedback is really much appreciated on my end.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being on our show. You have added lots of value, and I appreciate what you're doing, especially for the population of people that you're trying to reach, who either have ADHD or autism, or dyslexia, or any other special needs. I
Mhm.
appreciate the fact that you have that empathy for them, and that you want them to live their best lives too. And I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
one more round of applause to you. And thank you so much. And if you will just hang out for a second, we'll wrap up our session and back with you. Thanks again for being with us, Juliana.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for watching too.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have really learned something today, uh, not just about the benefits of good nutrition, because the heart of our session today was career coaching. In this session, if you notice, uh, not only did Juliana talk about her past experiences, but we also established some actionable steps to move forward. She had already implemented some things to help her with her future coaching practice. Well, actually, it's current because it's already happening, but she wanted to build upon it. And she was already doing some things to help her in that direction. And so you notice how the action steps we came up with at the end kind of answered the question, what's next? And that's the benefit of coaching, because it doesn't leave you where you are. It deals with where you are and it evaluates where you are. But good coaching helps get you to the next level. And so that's why it's so important that you have a coach, whatever area of life that you're looking for, and that you need extra support in. There's a coach available. In fact, around this video, or in the description of the podcast, there's a link. Go ahead and sign up to get our newsletter called Empowered, and you'll be able to get an email with the download of my workbook called Your Career Values Workbook. That's where you begin to work through what's important to you, what makes you happy at work, and then creating an actionable plan to help align your values with your career. That may mean that you reclaim your power at work where you are right now, or between me and you, don't tell the boss, that may mean it may be time to try something different. But you'll never know until you work through the workbook. I'll also leave in the description and around the video my link to my coaching practice called Dear Future Me, the coaching program. I'm more than willing to help you get to that next level because where we are is not the end. There's more. There's a future me just waiting to be birthed and waiting to come forward. And it's not going to happen just because I say so. There's a process, there's work to be done. And so make sure you click the links in the description. Thank you so much for being with us. Be sure to like, comment, and share this video. Bookmark the podcast, share it with a friend, because we're here to help, we're here to heal, and we're here to empower. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode.